Good morning. Namaste, everyone.
Good morning.
I am Rashmi Sood, your host for this Talk to the Expert series 132. I'm a founder of an initiative called Little Impressions, which supports parents and children with special needs and otherwise. I'm a storyteller and a parent coach. Other than this, I'm also a very proud core team member and an awareness ambassador of Spectrum, the Autism Project. The topic for today's discussion is mental health and emotional well-being for all. And supporting our conversation today, we have Dr. Renuka Rameshan, President, Association of Sign Language Interpreter India, to make this conversation accessible and inclusive for all. Co-assisting her is Pallavi Kulshrestha. She's also a member of ASLI and has an extensive 15 years of experience in education and disability sector, majorly in the area of deaf education and sign language. She has volunteered for various organizations in the country in the area of education, disability, advocacy, counseling, and much more. She switched from engineering to the development sector and has completed her B.Ed in special education, hearing impairment. She's MA in psychology and postgraduate diploma in humanitarian law and pursuing PhD in psychology from MDU Rohtak. A very warm welcome to our interpreters today for making this conversation accessible for all our viewers. As we all know that May is a month to create awareness towards mental health and well-being, not only just for a group of people, but for everybody. So gracing our platform today, we have an expert with extensive experience in this field. A very warm welcome to Saul Pereira, who is a counselor, therapist, and business consultant. He is bachelor's in arts and economics, political science, sociology from St. Joseph's College, Bangalore. He is trained in transactional analysis and reparenting under Miss Jacque Lee Schiff, the pioneer of the reparenting technique. He left teaching in 1980 to join Atma Shakti Vidyalaya in Bangalore, where he was the director of special education for emotionally disturbed children. He has presented papers on ethology of hyphoria, now being compiled into a book in the USA. He is associated as a counselor and trainer and is associated with various institutes like CREST, Christu Jyoti College, and Vishwadeep. He has practiced psychotherapy since 1988 and has used this approach extensively also as a clinical director of Wesser for today's discussion. Welcome to the platform, sir.
Please unmute.
You are on mute. You're on mute, sir.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, are you able to? A very warm welcome once again.
Thank you.
So, since today's topic is so close to each one of us listening to the talk, I would like to ask, sir, here, what do we mean by mental well-being and why is it so important for neurodivergent young adults and the caregivers?
Yeah. Mental health and mental well-being generally is referred to in terms of, how people are able to, feel, think, and act. And I think that's a little outdated. In my opinion, there is a even better 3 criteria that is, measurable, observable as well, which we can use to see, how people adjust to their lives as well as to the world. These 3 actually are found in transactional analysis, and they are useful to develop autonomy in personality, which is exactly what all of us as parents want, of our children. And the three criteria may sound very innocuous, but it's incredibly good if you go deeper into it. The three are: one is awareness, the most important of the three. The second one is spontaneity. And the third one is intimacy. And if you develop these three qualities and they kind of, have a continuum with each other, you will see not just independent personalities, but also, healthy personalities, wholesome personalities. And using these three criteria, it is possible for us to measure and observe changes in individuals, especially in the neurodivergent population, because you're saying there are, we operate from a lot of limitations when you're saying, no, these three qualities can actually be seen and observed and cultivated as well in the individual. So that's a very brief, to put it in a nutshell.
Yes, you very rightly said these are the three qualities that an individual may have so as to have a sound mental health. But if you could also tell in a layman's language or layman's what would be the mental health for the caregivers and the young adults?
Yeah. Very simply put, from the time we are in the womb and even after the womb, we are constantly interacting with the environment. And it begins with very intimate relationships with your mother, the primary caretaker, and then the father, and then the other siblings, as well as the society. Now, in this interaction between that individual and the society, there are lots of adjustment problems that will come up depending on various factors. Now, the point is that we should be able to relate to the world outside with whatever backgrounds we come from. And the more we are able to cope with it, we are going to become resilient human beings. As you all are well aware, that this world is, getting more and more complicated, more and more stressful, and the technology is rapidly advancing that we are not able to cope up with that. This is the current situation of a normal population. So when you have a special population of children with special needs and stuff like that, they will find it even more difficult. So there are these caretakers who are struggling with the coping of this change that's happening in the world. And then they have to help these special needs children to be able to cope with what they are struggling as well. It's very paradoxical that you're trying to match up something you're struggling with to help somebody else to cope with that. But whether you like it or not, it is a constant in life. You will experience change all the time, some rapidly, some slowly. But the more we are able to cope with it, we are going to not just succeed, we will survive. And that's where, we've seen a lot of species are getting extinct because they're not able to cope and adjust to the changes. We human beings are very resilient. Unfortunately or fortunately so, we have a very sophisticated brain which constantly has to interact with the evolving scenario. And that's not an easy job. And the unfortunate thing that I've noticed, especially in our educational system, and to a large extent in the way we bring up our children, our coping mechanism is not matched up with the changes that are taking place. Therefore, what happens, you will have a lot of people falling apart and falling astray, unable to cope with the situation because we have not developed the technology, the skills, the tools. And that lacuna, I think, is already showing, but will probably get worse because too much is happening currently. So this is what life is all about. your constant adjustment to your environment and to your internal environment as well. The more you're able to cope well with that, the more healthy you'll be as a personality.
Very well said, sir. That coping mechanisms, resilience is what will make you sail through the situations, and that is very important. And the very important fact you mentioned, it's an ever-changing situations and ever-changing environment. So how well we cope with it, we will be able to maintain our mental frame and balance. Moving on to our next question. In one of our discussions with you earlier, you had mentioned about internal frame of reference and external frame of reference. If you could explain to our viewers with what does this mean with reference to mental health?
Okay. So it's almost borders on what I just said, but let me give you more specific details about that. As we, come into this world and we learn to cope with lots of things around, we have incorporated, and even downloaded without discernment, like software being downloaded in computers, all that we are exposed to with our parents and early childhood, which is buried in our unconscious mind. Now, whether we like it or not, that is going to have the greatest impact in our personality as we go along. Bruce Lipton, is well known for having, elaborated on this. Though he says that from the third trimester in pregnancy till 7 years old, children will download programs without discernment. And after that, they will just tend to replicate it or repeat it with some modification. But he is not fully right. We know that even the food the mother consumes in the first trimester will impact the child. So a lot of things happening where children without discernment are offered an environment that impacts them. And then later, when they become somewhat autonomous, they begin to exercise their independence using what they have downloaded. Now, that downloaded stuff can be either interpreted wrongly, can have a lot of deviations in it, can have a lot of aberrations in it, which will then start impacting their adjustment to the society they're in. Now, this is their internal world. I'm sure you've heard a lot of programs and techniques being developed to treat the inner child, what they call inner child healing. Now, that's your internal frame of reference. You can't abandon that. It is there with you, without choice. But now there is something even more deeper that people should take note of. There is an innermost child, not just an inner child, there is an innermost child, which unfortunately is not being looked at adequately. And that is literally all the physical experiences that your body registers. Or it takes it as a memory, especially when you look at trauma. Now, this is called cellular memory, and people are hardly addressing this aspect. Now, this whole thing becomes your internal frame of reference. You've grown in that, you've been indoctrinated to a large extent in that, and therefore you have a limited number of tools and techniques and skills to use in the world that I have already mentioned is changing at a very rapid rate. Now, what is the external frame of reference? It is the world around you, and what are the rules and regulations and norms that you're exposed to constantly, and that you have to interact with that. So this internal frame of reference will interact with the external frame of reference to see how well you adjust and cope with that. Now, I've always been saying that the external frame of reference is rapidly changing. I've been saying that today as well. Now, if you don't change the internal frame of reference adequately, you're going to struggle to cope up with that. And one beautiful sign when you look at people who are disturbed mentally is that they are so caught up with the internal frame of reference that they are unable to relate to the world outside. Unable, or they find it very difficult. Now, this is going to be a very good sign to see how much we can get them to abandon the internal frame of reference and relate to the external world. Now, this is socialization. This is for our ability to relate to other people. Don't forget, we are social animals, and we are finally measured in terms of how well we can relate to each other. And that is even more tested when we relate to members of the opposite sex. And the greatest test, of course, is when we get married to a person and we settle down bedding and boarding with someone. That time, a lot of these qualities are being tested, your internal frame of reference, in terms of its ability to cope with the external. Now, this is a constant, it doesn't stop. But those who are disturbed in the internal frame of reference. And if that is so strong, it can draw them away from the external frame of reference. Now, there are two movies I would like to bring it to your notice. One very archaic movie, I don't know if it is still available. It's called Sunrise, S-O-N, Sunrise. And this movie shows a young couple looking after an autistic child. But the documentary is so good that very clearly there is an effort to try to get to know the world of the autistic child. And the choice is either we try to draw the child out of their frame of reference and put them into our frame of reference, or we have to go into their frame of reference before pulling them out of their frame of reference. I hope I'm not too complicated. Okay. Now, I'm interested, I don't know if we can get answers from people. Which do you think we need to do? Get into the frame of reference of the kid, or get the kid to come into our frame of reference? No, we can't get answers? Okay.
Well, we
Cool.
put this question to the viewers, although those of us who will be hearing you out can put their thoughts in the comments while you talk further, and then you can always answer later, sir.
Okay. Now, let me tell you what you'll see in the movie. Both the parents mimic and imitate this child, and gradually the child is willing to accept them into his world. I think that is phenomenal. And, a lot of efforts are made otherwise where we try to pull them into our world without knowing whether they're capable of doing it and without developing sufficient camaraderie with him. Okay, so what they do, they ape and mimic all the actions of this kid, that he becomes fascinated with the parents and then gradually allows the parents into his world. And then, only then, trust is developed enough that the child is willing to accommodate some input from these parents. And it goes along pretty well. Unfortunately, the movie ends in a sad way. I think, because it's been a long time since I saw that movie, I think the couple divorced, and then we see that the kid is reverted back from all the gains that it had picked up. And the mother is left with the child, and the mother is seen now again mimicking and aping the child in order to get back into his world. Now, this is very, useful as a tool and technique, that we must first develop some affinity, and rapport with anybody who's disturbed, because they are caught up in that internal world. They are too frightened to step out into the external world or to relate to that. And even at the cost of their lives, they will defend this effort and stay internal. And so it's really, really important that we get into their world, develop trust and rapport, and then gradually introduce them into our world. This is very successful, and I've used it in my therapy itself like that. And therefore, this thing about understanding people is really, really important. together with understanding, you must do it with love. You will see amazing results. So my, advice to a lot of you are involved in caretaking, get into the world of the child, get into the world of the neurodivergent person, and then bring them out with camaraderie, because they need you to accompany them into this world, which is too frightening for them to do it alone. Okay, so this is just a good tool itself for you to apply and use in that. Then the child will leave their internal frame of reference, relate to the external, and find that they are gaining success with our support. And then they will be able to switch from the internal to the external as and when desired. That adjustability that we all do normally and we don't realize it is coping, and the coping mechanism that we need and we use normally. So this is the best way I can describe it, where there is a clear distinction between the two frames of reference.
Absolutely, sir. You really highlighted very important points here for all the viewers and caretakers who are in the journey of raising children with neurodivergence. So we have two viewers here, Rajni Gangadharan, who is watching and says it is very important fact that you have highlighted for the parents. And Nina Girish is watching and agrees with you completely. She says to get into the child's world and understand them and work likewise brings tremendous change, both in parents and children. I think it's going to give them both a sense of accomplishment, because parents will see child understanding them and more accommodating than just getting them rather get into our world. So real a very important information and thoughts you have given to parents here who can really use it mindfully and work in their favor. So with my next question to you in interest of time is, with reference to mental health, you have often mentioned about the concepts of epigenetic and neuroplasticity. How does that help young adults who are neurodivergent?
Brilliant. This is something, that's very recently being used and applied in therapy. First of all, let me explain epigenetics. The term itself means to go beyond the influence of your genes. Okay, that means we are not doomed by what we inherit. In fact, you will manifest those inherited traits in a specific environment. Now, that environment should be conducive to those genes, and only then you're saying, what you have as a predisposition can get manifest if it stimulates or mitigates those particular traits. Which means the environment you put a kid in, or any of us for that matter, that environment will influence us to either propagate the genes or to even inhibit the genes. Okay, now this is proven scientifically so far that it is possible to take you beyond the influence of the genes. Now, this percentage, I got it very recently, and don't fall off your chairs. The influence of your genes is only 7%. What the environment can do, in spite of your genes, is impact you 73%. Now, that means we should not neglect the environment. We should keep constantly, scientifically exploring a lot of possibilities to make the environment conducive to a healthy lifestyle. This is possible literally with anybody. I don't know about the mentally retarded or even the physically handicapped, but I do know that they can improve their lives by the environment, by skills, tools, techniques that we, develop to the situation. It is possible to make them compromise, go around, and defeat whatever difficulties they have been endowed with through their genes. Now, the second one, neuroplasticity, that I've been talking to you about, is where there are neurological blocks, literally neurological blocks in the brain, where I don't know how many of you are aware that being creatures of habit, we tend to use a lot of circuits in the brain, which are called neural pathways, in order to get into a habit. Now, this figures maybe, jumbled about here and there. We have seen that if you maintain the habit for 10 weeks, it is going to become a permanent habit. Now, that means the old habit will die out by a process called atrophy. That is, you lose what you don't use. Okay. Now, this means that neuroplasticity, that means this neural pathways are quite elastic. We can get to alter it and move it around and stuff like that with new behaviors. We can do it for 10 weeks and then get a permanent habit in it. But they've also found that these blocks that I mentioned earlier, neurological blocks, which may be emotional blocks incidentally. Some people have grown up with lots of anger, lots of fear, lots of sadness, and you may not even think it has any impact, but it has a huge impact on that personality in the brain. Okay, where you're saying that particular pathway that enables, a good habit or any habit to be formed itself can become hampered in that particular pathway, and because of that block. So it's almost what happens in bypass surgery, in cardiac surgery. Wherever there is a block, it is possible for us to skirt the block with other neuronal connections and establish a link to the rest of the pathway. That is what is called neuroplasticity. Here again, we're saying even if you've got a habit, it is possible to change that habit. It is literally possible to remove one habit and put another habit in place. Otherwise, we would be doomed. But we have neuroplasticity. Anybody, given the right circumstances, right exposure, right tools, right motivation, can overcome handicaps, difficulties, both psychological and physical. Based on this pure scientific thing, there is no makeup on this, it's real. You can exploit both these facilities now to change people's lives. And if any of you believe in evolution, this is exactly what happens. The environment has been altering our DNA. Okay, so you're saying it establishes that fact that we are susceptible to change, that we can change, but not with old habits. This is the sad part. We need to keep looking out for new habits, new approaches, new methods. And when you put your heads together, it is possible to create phenomenal things to help all kinds of people. And this kind of venture that you're doing now is typically a place where you're saying we can get people to sit down and discuss and develop, new things. It doesn't matter. Some of them are really common sense things. And some of them have got very good science to back them, to authenticate them. And you say, when we combine all that together, we can apply very customized approaches in the moment in our lives.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm sure the information, the knowledge you are sharing with us here will empower many of us, and we will be really benefited. So one of our viewers, Sushma, says this is so important for parents to understand that getting into the world of children will help them in the long run. Thank you for such insightful explanation. Nina also says, coping mechanism, you have beautifully highlighted each aspect, switch from internal to external. They're absolutely making notes of your conversation, and they think they can apply in their lives every moment to, as you said, to change habits. And how you've mentioned that only 7% is what genes are accountable for, and rest is the environment that we give to our children, to us, can make a lot of difference. Thank you so much, sir, for all of this you've been telling us. Again, we have a laundry list of questions for you. The next question is, what is the role of communication between the caregivers and young adults or children in maintaining a balanced mental health?
Yeah. Again, we are, I'm reminding you all, we are social animals. We are made for relationships. And to relate to each other, we need some form of communication. I cannot overemphasize this at all. This is just very, very crucial. And, the people who are, differently enabled or able in terms of hearing, not seeing, prayer, and stuff like that, they know what they are missing or how much they are missing and how difficult it is to communicate. And, science has come a long way. Our cultures, our, research and everything has proposed different alternatives. But even when we talk about normal people communicating to each other, we are taught four things in our lives, both in school and at home. We are taught to read, we are taught to write, we are taught to speak. But the most important skill in communication is the skill of listening. None of us are taught the skill of listening, and so we are quite handicapped when you're saying the most important skill in communication is listening. And another important thing about communication is not what is sent, but what is received. Now that again involves, good listening. And the biggest problem with couples and marital problems, with parents and children, in community, in industry, is this problem of communication. And the big problem in that is saying people are not listening to us. And so it's good. We've got thousands of languages to communicate. But that is verbal communication, written communication is there. And now with the internet, we've got fabulous sources of information. But we still need, even stronger things like body language, the tone of voice, apart from language. Again, there are percentages there. I know many of you will be aware. 55% is conveyed via body language. 55%. 38% is conveyed via tone of voice. Okay. And only 7% is conveyed via language. So you can imagine that 7 out of 100 is the spoken word. And the rest of it is what we see, what we hear in the tone of voice. And so we miss a lot of communication there if we don't pay attention to this. And so this thing about being mindful in communication is excellent. To take note of all of these things, and then you'll get the full picture. Now, we cannot convey anything to anyone unless we are able to communicate it by a medium that is understood by both parties. So language plays a very important role. The culture plays a very important role. Your civilization plays a very important role. And you can see that those cultures that actually had good communications through language are the most advanced, the most, adapted people, because knowledge is shared. We can just beautifully share a lot of information, increase the size of knowledge, which will then become power in them. Knowledge when used is power, not knowledge when it is static in you. Okay. That is just wasted knowledge or potential knowledge. I'm sorry, not wasted, it is potential knowledge. which could become very powerful when we start applying. So there is no way that you can abandon communication. You can see its effectiveness in industry, in the world. The whole television media is based on this communication now. You're able to see audio visually what is happening in America in your living room, and therefore it influences you. That's why there are lots of cultural changes taking place. We are literally on culture shifting sands, Nothing is permanent. Everything is changing at a very rapid rate because of this input. So we cannot neglect that. But I would throw in a huge ingredient, which is essential in relationships, and that is love. When we communicate with love, believe me, you're highly potent. The results are also highly potent. And this, you're saying, is what is the essence of relationships. We are made to want to give love and to receive love. And if you put that into communication, the world will change with you. Not that, the world changes and I have to adapt. The world will change with you. And I believe that this is very, very crucial in every aspect of life. In any situation where there are two and more people, you will understand how important communication is. Now I'll come to this internal frame of reference to highlight something about this communication. There is an inner dialogue that goes on in all of us. Every time when we are processing anything, there's a lot of inner dialogue. In transactional analysis, we divide that into 3 states. And those 3 states talk to each other. And that communication, believe me this, that communication is what can make you or break you. Okay, a lot of that is imbibed to our early childhood by innocuous statements by parents saying, you don't know what to do with? And then the child begins to wonder, am I that bad? And then they will incorporate that and they will talk to themselves, yeah, you don't know how to do this. And that will become their doctrine. And that will be their handicap for the rest of it. We need to give what are called the 2 P's. Permission with protection all the time. You and I are interacting right now with a lot of permission and protection. You'd want to interrupt me, you'll ask me, can I say something at this juncture? Or you want to share something, you're saying, I'd like to share something. What are you doing? You're seeking permission with protection. And we need to offer that to our children and to anybody, neurodivergent, anybody. Lot of permission. In my counseling experience, it is through good permission and protection that I get people to start talking and communicate. How well they do it when they find they are in a safe environment. They find that you are protected as well. And so they open up. You'll be shocked at some of the things they've shared with me, they have not shared with other people. And they would say that. This is the first time I'm sharing with you, which is a big milestone in my therapy because you're saying something has broken the ice. And I know it to be the 2 P's, permission with protection. We need to be generous, careful, beautifully providing that in upbringing people. You will see growth, development, and survival, all 3 happening simultaneously.
Beautifully said, sir. And I'm sure each one of us who are hearing this conversation and viewing it are surely getting benefited. I myself am taking notes and resonating to a lot of things sir is mentioning. Our viewers here, Shashi Thakur says, great insights, sir, impact of genes and environments and habits. Rashmi Deb, who is watching us, and she finds this session to be very, very insightful. Purnima Shivaraman is watching and she finds the overall information very interesting. And Moshmi agrees that we all need to work on listening skills, which is very important and integral part of the communication. Very well highlighted for all of us here. It's so much, your experience is telling us so many things that we can really, as parents, make note of it. If we don't do, let's start doing it and see the difference. Sushma says, when we speak with kindness and listen with empathy, we create spaces of understanding and compassion. So this is all the feedback, and all of us who are watching you and hearing you out, more when more people join in and watch you. But going forward,
I hope this is recorded so that people can,
yes,
you know, see. Okay,
yes.
okay.
It
Good.
does get recorded. Those of us who do not have the time to watch it now because of their schedules can always see it later. Whatever we have discussed since we started the discussion till now, the next question is, what is the importance of emotional wellness? After all, whatever we have discussed till now.
Okay. Perhaps, you could say that is the ultimate goal in my therapy. And it plays a very significant role. I was shocked myself when I learned about these figures. You will be shocked, but the mind over matter effect is 97%. Now, that is a huge impact your mind has on your body. Every thought of yours vibrates in every cell in your body, and therefore your mass of cells are in tune and succumb to that particular thought and live that thought as well. So if you have something negative, it will impact all your cells in a negative. And you're saying the choice is just to switch from the negative thought to something positive. And immediately, all the cells will resonate to that positive thought instantly. And it's as simple as that. But we are creatures of habit. We get into, anxiety programmed in us for years. And you ask you to change your mind, you can't. You're saying, I'm so habituated to it. But you can. With some other skills, there's an approach that I keep talking about. You approach therapy from external internal. That is one way to do it, which is symptomatically, change the symptoms and slowly get into the core. Another approach is to go from inside outside. Go to the core, address the core, and that will slowly impact the external manifestation. But in therapy, an ideal thing would be to combine both. You do external internal and internal external. Half the time, half the journey, and very successful. Okay, now this is a beautiful way to handle it. Now, what is the role of emotions in all of this? Is that it's got all the role to play. So, we all know that we are human beings, but we don't realize that parallel to being a human being, we are also emotional beings. It is literally two sides of the same coin. You cannot separate them. If you say you're a human being, you're saying, I must admit that I'm also an emotional being, and vice versa. But the impact that emotions have on your human side is the greatest influence about how humane you can be and how much you exercise those qualities. Somebody mentioned empathy, understanding, love, all these things. Now, this emotional side can become pretty complicated if you went into all kinds of dimensions. So what I've done, I've simplified it. Okay. But if you want to read a good book, it's written by Daniel Goleman, where he's called it Emotional Intelligence. Literally saying that if you're emotionally balanced, you'll be intelligent. And if you're intelligent, you could become emotionally balanced as well. But in this simplified thing that I present, I bring about 4 emotions. They are the fundamental emotions. You're either sad, scared, angry, or happy. And these are terms children use, and so it's very easy to understand. There are no complications or ambiguity. So people understand it when you say, Mama, I'm sad, Mama, I'm scared. You know what it is. But somebody comes and tells you I'm nervous, you kind of vaguely know what it is. But it could be a lot of different things. Or the best word would be upset. Somebody says, yeah, I'm upset. You could be upset, sad. You could be upset, scared. You could be upset, angry. You don't know that. And so these words give a lot of definition to the emotion. And the thing that you've wrongly learned all through childhood and in institutions, that you must learn how to control your emotions. That is not true. Absolutely false. In fact, you should learn how to express your emotions. Okay, the modern term they use is emotional regulation. How to regulate it, but not control. You're saying to express it in healthy, appropriate ways. And in that, there are lots of tools and techniques. Fear being the biggest problem of mankind, there are multiple schools of psychology devoted to handling fear. Now, pathologies also, you get people with anxiety, with depression, with schizophrenia, with bipolar, and even autism. You will notice that they are most disturbed when they're not handling their emotions well, or they don't know how to express it.
Exactly.
The word emotion itself has got a meaning and a message at the same time. Okay. EM means from within, and motion means movement. So when you bring those two together, it conveys that all your feelings must move from inside to the outside. What we commonly say, expression. That literally says, press it out of your system, not just move it out. It says, press it out of your system. And the moment you do that, you will come to a state of equilibrium, what is technically called homeostasis, balanced state. You please test this out at any point of time. You will see the merit of being emotionally balanced and healthy every time you express yourself. Now, the fear many of us have is that, if I express it to this person, they will not like it, they will not like me. All that is looking at outcome. The word clearly says focus on the movement, on the expression. If you reduce that word emotion, you come to another word called emote. That means move it out again. Okay. Another definition of that emotion is E stands for energy, motion stands for movement. So this energy has to come out of your system. What happens if you don't? It will go in. If you don't move it out, the thing has only one other alternative, which is to move in. And you believe me this, it will go and choose a favorite organ to express itself in that organ. So that your using sadness internally might be to choose your heart, I might choose my stomach. It varies according to different individuals. And this tendency is so common to human beings that 97% of all people who are hospitalized have an emotional component. Can you believe that? 97% mind over matter. These influences are collectively called psychosomatic disease. It used to be called disorder, but now we know diseases are manifested. There is a huge component of this in any disease you have, which are pathology, which have got infection in it. There's a huge component of unexpressed emotions. From the top of your head to your toe, you can affect various parts of your body, including your hair color, hair texture, hair fall. You can have huge problems. Your teeth and your gums, your heart. Oh my gosh, we trouble ourselves too much with our heart, all because of emotions not being expressed. Your lungs, and the largest organ in your body, I'm sure many of you have forgotten that. It is your skin. It reacts in phenomenal ways when you don't express feelings. So the key, to put it very simply, the more you are in touch with your feelings and you learn to express it, you will do very well in life as a personality, and you'll be on a success mode also, and you'll be able to relate to people very well. Nutshell. This is a nutshell. Okay. There's so much to tell you about emotion. But let me, stop with that.
Yeah, absolutely, sir. Thank you so much for your lot of information here. So, so Shma agrees that, and she says she's taking notes of all about positive reinforcement, how it plays a crucial role. And Nina here says words being forth lots of emotion, bring forward lot of emotions and expressions, and it is very important to voice them out. We need to teach how to express emotions rather than holding back. And I must thank both our interpreters, Pallavi and Dr. Renuka, to beautifully, express and bring forth whatever you are articulating here. In the interest of time, we have been, it's about an hour we have been speaking. So my last question to you is, what is your message to the community as a whole while we are listening to you, and what will be that for all of us here?
Well, I'll make an old quote. Be the change you want to see. I think Mahatma Gandhi is the one who said that. And I would like for all of us, however old you are, practice what you want to share with somebody, experience it yourself. You will become a very good conveyor or a teacher of that. Okay. And I'm repeating this again. Make love the ingredient of everything you do, you say, you live. You live love. You'll see a big change in yourself and in other people. You do everything with love. You will see that big manifestation in your life, and you'll impact many lives. Love is missing right now in our world. You will see that it is absent in many situations of turmoil, conflict, death, and just too much. Even suicide, the person doesn't love their life. You can't live like that. And this is something, I have no statistics to prove this, but 99% of us are sensitive to rejection because we are social animals. And the 1% that is left over are pathologically sensitive to rejection. They have serious problems because of that. You can literally see this problem manifest in your life on a regular basis. It is rejection that hurts us. Why is the fear of public speaking such a huge problem? It's the problem of rejection. And little bit less problematic is the issue of abandonment, the fear of abandonment. And the least of the three that we know about is separation anxiety. Social animals, we need each other. It's not enough that we have learned to be dependent and then from there we become independent. That is not the ultimate goal in life. It is to become interdependent. You scratch my back, I scratch your back. All of this venture that you're doing as well is sharing information, giving and taking information. This is not one sided. Don't even imagine. I love the feedback that some of these people have given. And, some of them are very interesting, highlighting things, which I didn't say, but they deducted it. So that means they are thinking. And I recommend this highly. Think, become thinking beings. Because we've got a very sophisticated brain, the most sophisticated brain, capable of wonders. Nothing has come to match it so far. Use your brains. You can think your way out of many situations. You parents are special caretakers to a child. You know the child and the child knows you at various levels, instinctually also. And if you think your way through that, you'll be able to know how to touch the child, how the child can touch you and stuff like that. So the key to all this is, love. You think with love, you operate with love, you give love, you take love, you will be healthy. The world will also stand to become healthy. That's my message.
A beautiful message indeed, sir. It's a wonderful message for all of us here. We, Janki, who's watching us, she says very relevant and insightful. Each and every word that you've spoken here, many of us can resonate, reflect, and think, and can take up in our lives to make our life better emotionally and work on our emotional well-being. So be the change maker if you want to bring the change in the society yourself. And we truly believe this platform as a group, as the Spectrum Awareness Project, these are our guiding principle of coming together, working together, and empowering everyone. We want to leave no one behind, but be the part, at least a helping part of each one's journey. So nobody is left alone. And as you rightly mentioned that we are living in a society and we believe in being interdependent, not independent in the literal sense. So how we come together and help each other is what we believe in. Thank you so much for your precious time today, guiding us, enlightening us, and giving your long, huge experience sharing here with all of us in just an hour's time. Thank you so much, Saul sir, Renuka ma'am, and Pallavi for taking out your precious time this Saturday afternoon. Wishing everybody a great day ahead and a wonderful week. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate this opportunity as well to meet all of you. All the best.
Thank you.
Yeah.